Hello! Hello. Long time no see, and by long time I mean it was like a week. Hi Merc! Welcome in. For anyone that wasn't aware from not being in my Discord or not being on Blue Sky, Twitter, blah blah blah, I got sick. My chronic illness had flared up and it was horrible and awful, so I had to cancel a week worth of streams. But I'm doing much better now. It's the very tail end, pretty much done with. On the last little bit of antibiotics. I'm doing much better, thank you. So now we're here, now we're streaming. And I haven't done a reading stream in a little while. So I thought that would be a nice way to get back in. We got our classic Reddit NoSleep stories. Found a couple that sounded really goofy silly. If they get a little too silly, we have the scariest stories music that you've seen in probably some memes. It's but that music. If it gets a little too silly, we're gonna start playing that. But we're here. So we got a couple stories. We have my friends and I tried a ritual we found on Reddit. I think it worked. Someone keeps sending me weird pictures at 3 a.m. and the voice and the static. Scariest stories. Hi, Ryan. Yes, scariest stories. Try not to get scared challenge. so stupid. But I think we're gonna start with my friends and I tried a ritual we found on Reddit. I think it worked. This is by LyriumDreams. Kind of starts off like an infomercial, so I guess bear with me for like a minute. Did you ever have an imaginary friend? Chances are good that you did, even if you don't remember it. The statistics say about 65% of all kids do, and that it usually lasts for a couple of months. My mom claims I had mine for almost 2 years. I think his name was Dale. Or Dane? He was really good at marbles, the way I usually wished I was, and he knew all the best hiding places when my brother and I played hide and seek. He was my best friend in 1st grade, but until Kat showed us the ritual, I hadn't thought about him in years. Of course it was Kat who found the ritual. She's always lurking on r/paranormal and r/3kings. What the fuck is 3 kings? Hold on, I'm not curious on this because it doesn't link it. 3 Kings Corner. Rituals. Oh, okay. Interesting. It is just a ritual Reddit for like Wiccan pagan rituals. Or other rituals, I suppose. Joel and I aren't quite as into creepy shit, but Kat's been our friend since elementary school. She's a good friend, weird interests and all. Also, she's a total badass at COD. She'd been after us for months to do one of her rituals, but most of the things she found just seemed silly or dangerous. What is the point of locking yourself in a dark room with a mirror? If you stare into it long enough, of course you're gonna see something. And if you get a bunch of people together and go stumbling around in the dark, someone's gonna get hurt. We tried to tell her we didn't want to do the rituals, but she persisted. Kat's like that. She doesn't really take no for an answer. On Friday, she showed up at Joel's house with a sheaf of papers clutched in her hand. We were sitting around playing some Madden when she started banging on the door like she was there to serve a warrant. She was practically vibrating when we opened the door. I took a step back, but she shoved the papers into my hands before I realized what she was doing. Look, Remy, I found a ritual you guys can actually do. Nothing dangerous, nothing stupid. This is the one. Vibrating with motion. Joel started to protest, but Kat was already pushing past him into the house. She sprawled out on the couch, so far back that her sandals dangled a couple of inches off the floor. Her foster parents don't let her shave her legs. Okay. But I caught Joel checking her out anyway. He's always kind of had a thing for her, but Kat's totally oblivious to that kind of stuff. Just read it. Why was that? Was that an important... Okay. Joel squinted at the printout. Ritual for summoning your imaginary friend, he read, shaking his head. Regain your creativity, your innocence, and your power. Give me that. He snatched the papers, but I had my eyes on Kat. She was jittering on the couch like an over-caffeinated kid on Christmas Eve. Her brown eyes were shining with excitement, and she kept messing with her hair, twisting one strand around her finger and flipping it from one side of her part to the other. See, it's perfect! What is this ritual supposed to do, exactly? I put my hand out for the papers, but Joel was still reading. He yanked the ritual away from me and slumped down onto the couch next to Kat, flipping to the next page. It says we have to finish the ritual 3 minutes to sunset, and if we do it correctly, our imaginary friends will appear. There's a whole list of stuff we need. His voice trailed off as he ran his finger down the list. Yeah? Kat prompted him. Bounce, bounce. That was written. Water, a watch, childhood photographs. I think I have most of the stuff. He frowned at something on the page. What's the salt for? I stared at him. You're not actually considering this one. Why not? Joel shrugged, and Kat broke into a big sunny smile. I did a double take. Kat doesn't smile much. Her front teeth are crooked, and no matter what we tell her, she's always been self-conscious about it. It doesn't look dangerous. We just lay out the stuff and invite our childhood friends to return. I threw myself back into Joel's old recliner, wincing as the mechanism inside squealed warningly. For what purpose? I mean, I can get behind wanting to reconnect with part of your childhood, but what good does it do to summon your imaginary friend? Joel closed the packet and handed the papers over to me. He looked at Kat for a long time before he answered, and when he finally did, it seemed like he was talking more to her than to me. I was a really happy kid, he said. I wouldn't mind getting that back. Levi and I used to have all kinds of adventures in my dad's house. Yes! Kat clapped her hands and threw her legs over Joel's. Come on, Remy. There has to be something about your childhood that you wouldn't mind getting back. The ritual says we can ask our childhood friends questions, and that sometimes they'll give us a gift if we ask nicely. If we ask nicely. Like something was out there, deciding whether or not we were worthy. I shivered. Then I looked at the two of them and thought about it. Really thought about it. The way I suspected neither of them had actually done. Kat was right. I did have some questions. And what was the worst that could happen? Neither Joel nor I was any stranger to making fools of ourselves. And it would be pretty badass to see Dane again, even if it was only imaginary. I looked up. Kat beamed at me. She was thrilled that Joel was in. I sighed. Fine. What do we need to do? Signing up for the ritual was simple. We had to split up to get our childhood photographs, but everyone found one. Joel found this great picture of him with his hair in micro braids. When we finished laughing about it, he put it into the circle with Kat's 3rd grade dance recital snapshot and the picture of me in my youth soccer uniform. I hoped we weren't going to have to burn the pictures. I looked like an idiot in that uniform, but my mom would be big mad if the picture went up in flames. Focus, you guys. Kat's eyes were so wide and bright, I almost suspected she was on something. She told us to focus about a dozen times now, but Joel and I weren't taking it seriously. We should have. Yeah, Remy. Joel poked me with a bundle of sage. Stop fooling around. This is important to Kat. I brandished the salt shaker. I'm over here doing my job. You're the one horsing around. Stop it. Kat had both her hands on her hips, her eyes flashing. I really need this to go right, you guys. I yawned, riding the salt shaker and sidestepping Joel as he tried to poke me again. Why is this so important to you, kitty cat? She rolled her eyes at the nickname, or maybe at the question. This is my first time you idiots have actually agreed to help me with one of these. And besides, I really want to see Friend again. He was the only one I had after my parents died. We both fell quiet at that. Kat doesn't talk about her childhood much. She moved to the town the year we all turned 9, and we've been best friends ever since. So much so, in fact, that we tend to forget she wasn't always with us. I could tell Joel wanted to make a snarky comment about Friend's name, but he kept his mouth shut. Who knew what old memories it might drag up? Kat lit the sage and offered it to me. Remy, you go first. Why me? I didn't reach for the sage. I wasn't ready to participate in this ridiculousness until one of the others went first, but Kat wasn't going to give me a choice. Kat smiled, inscrutable, and pointed to something in the printout. You're the oldest by 6 days, right? It has to be you. Ugh, fine. I took a breath and spoke the words, feeling ridiculous. Nothing happened. No flicker in the air, no shapes in the dim candlelight, just silence. I almost felt relieved. If something had happened, I would have to face it. This way, I could still pretend the ritual was bullshit. Then a wet hissing noise. The candle went out. Wind, Joel spoke quickly, striking a match. There was no wind. The windows were closed. And for a second, I had the awful feeling something had just made a decision about me. The flame stood straight and bright once more as Kat handed the smoking bundle of sage to Joel. The candlelight stretched as he spoke the ritual words. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light, but then I saw it. Thin, dark, barely there. A little boy, about 7 years old, with a shock of white hair and big, pupilless blue eyes. Not quite standing, not quite moving. Just there, staring at Joel with something like recognition. Levi? Joel's voice cracked, but he didn't ask a question. He didn't wait. I dismiss you. The shadow flickered, and then it was gone. Joel let out a breath that was almost a sob. Why'd you do that? Kat surged to her feet, knocking over the salt shaker. You didn't even ask him anything. He looked at you, Joel. See, she wasn't just mad. She was hurt. Like he'd thrown away something she'd been working on for years. Joel was still breathing hard when Kat snatched the sage from him, her fingers gripping it so tightly her knuckles turned white. The moment she sat back down, the candle flames trembled, not flickering, not bending in the air, just shivering like something unseen had pressed too close. A thick weight settled over the room, heavy and suffocating, like we were being buried in something invisible. Like the air had been replaced with something denser, something that wanted to be inside our lungs. Joel and I exchanged a look, and I knew he was feeling it too. Kat didn't hesitate. She lifted her chin, her voice steady, the words spilling from her like she practiced them 100 times. Friend, beloved of Kat, I invite you back. The candlelight lurched sideways. The shadows stretched, pooling unnaturally beneath Kat's filthy sandals. I swallowed hard. The room tilted. Not physically, but suddenly the floor didn't feel stable. The walls were too far away, stretching back into a darkness that hadn't been there before. Joel's hand shot out, gripping my arm. Friend, Kat repeated, and she smiled. A real, soft, relieved smile. Come back to me, beloved. Something slid into the circle. Not appeared. Slid. I don't know how to describe it. At first it was just wrong air, a smear of space that shouldn't exist. And then there it was. Not fully formed, but real enough that I could feel my stomach trying to fold in on itself just from looking at it. It was too tall. Where Levi had been in the shadow, flickering and vague. This thing was solid. A thick, sinewy shape, hunched and waiting. I didn't want to look at its face, but my eyes kept pulling towards it, like my own mind wanted to confirm the thing it refused to process. It was smiling. Too many teeth, in too many places. I sucked in a sharp breath. Joel made a noise low in his throat, but Kat just beamed. See, Remy? Her voice was barely a whisper, reverent. It works. He came back. As she spoke, the thing moved towards her. A twitch, a jerk. Like something shifting under its skin. Like it was learning how to wear its own shape again. Its limbs cracked as it reached out for her. Joel grabbed my wrist again. Nope. Nope, 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 nope. Cat, I whispered, barely able to get the words out. We should stop. But she didn't look scared. She didn't say the words to dismiss the monster. She looked happy. Joel yanked hard on my arm, and for the first time, Kat's expression sharpened. Go, she snapped. The candles flared. The shadow at her feet reached. I'll finish the ritual alone. The words sent a spike of cold fear through my guts. The room didn't feel right anymore. It felt claimed. Joel and I bolted. Hi, boss. I walked home alone. Joel didn't say anything when we reached the intersection near his house. He just turned and left, hands jammed deep in his hoodie pockets. I didn't blame him. The night felt too quiet. The streetlights buzzed overhead, and somewhere far off, a dog barked once before cutting off, like it had thought better of making noise. I wasn't sure if I was breathing right. My chest felt tight, my stomach knotted. I didn't even want to look at the shadows pulling in the alleyways I passed. I didn't want to think about how they stretched wrong back at Kat's house, how they moved. Kat was still there, with it. Friend. I almost went back a dozen times, but I couldn't. Instead, I charged upstairs to my room, threw myself on my bed, and threw my arm over my eyes. I couldn't process what had happened to us. How did everything get so screwed up? My phone buzzed next to me on the bed, and I glanced at the screen. Joel, 11:42 p.m. Dude, don't answer Kat. If she texts you, don't answer. Something's wrong. She came over acting weird. I don't think it's her. The phone buzzed in my hand as I read the last message. Another text, this time from Kat. Kat, 11:43 p.m. Joel's being so weird, lol. Wouldn't even let me in. I'm coming to you instead. Be there soon. Smile. I stared at my phone, pulse hammering against my ribs. My fingers felt stiff, heavy. I wanted to believe Joel was overreacting, that Kat was just messing with us, that we were all just... Something shifted. A creak of wood. Under the bed. Remy, don't trust them. A voice, small, familiar, too close, like someone was curled beneath my bed, their mouth an inch away from my ear. I stopped breathing. The air in my lungs turned solid. Then, from the darkness below, something rolled out and bumped against my foot. A marble. That's the end. That's it. Yeah. Hi, Connor. Welcome in. It's a prequel to Marble Madness. Oh no. But yes, hi, welcome in. Hi, boss. The queen has returned. I am returned, yes. I'm doing much better. I'm feeling much better. Welcome in, Connor. Story number 1. My friends and I tried a ritual we found on Reddit. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Ooh. I debated in the middle of that turning on the scariest stories song. I don't think it was quite worth that. I think it was not too ridiculous. I think it had a good amount of spook. Just a little bit silly. Not super silly, just a little bit silly. We have 2 other stories. Someone keeps sending me weird pictures at 3 a.m. and the voice and the static. I'm gonna take a little snack break here. Delicious. I made myself a couple of different grilled sandwiches earlier. One was Chihuahua cheese, brie, and blueberry goat cheese with smoked turkey. And it was very, very yummy.
Hey.
Hi.
Oh, look.
I am streaming.
Okay, bye.
Goodbye. A snack. Say hi to Snag. Hi, bye. The other one was just a regular grilled cheese with Chihuahua cheese. And Chihuahua cheese, if you've never had Chihuahua cheese, it's delicious. It slaps. Oh yeah, Snek. S-N-E-K. Kind of like snake, but you replace the A with an E. When you try it out, it's very good. You can have it just like straight, just like as is. It makes a really good grilled cheese. It goes really well with like nachos or tacos, like Latin, Spanish food, because it is from Chihuahua, Mexico. Hence the name Chihuahua cheese. So it's very good. It's very yummy. Savory, not too heavy. Delicious. A little bit salty. But we continue our scariest stories. We'll go with someone keeps sending me weird pictures at 3 a.m. by fragrant_by_3546. A lot of these were posted like within the past day or two, by the way, so some of them are quite recent. The first picture came in at 3:12 a.m. I was in a deep sleep until my mobile, suddenly ringing, woke me up. Confused, I stretched in the dark and felt along my bedside table for my phone, hoping that this was spam or an emergency. I looked at my notifications and saw that I had been sent a picture from an unknown number. A young man strapped to a chair, face covered in bruises and blood, eyes wide with fear. I had no idea who this was. The second picture arrived straight after the first. Same man, different picture. His mouth forced open by some kind of metal device, stretching his mouth into a grotesque smile. Teeth broken in his mouth like shattered mug. Bleeding gums. I still had no idea who this person was. The third picture was the worst. His hands, missing their fingernails, raw, exposed flesh underneath. I could see the tendons stretched against the bone. I sat up in my bed, still groggy from my sleep, my heart racing. At first I thought it was a joke, a prank, a wrong number. My brother and I went through a phase of sending each other stuff like this to gross each other out, but I haven't heard from him in years. It was either morbid curiosity or compulsion that told me to swipe through the pictures again. As I did, a queasy feeling settled over my stomach. There was something very intimate about these pictures. They were too posed, the lighting a bit too deliberate. This was not an accident, I thought. Then the messages started. Do you know him? My breath was getting shallower as I sat in my dark room. My fingers hovered above the keyboard. I wanted to type, but something restrained me. Instead, I waited. 1 minute, 2 minutes. My phone chimed again. You will. I threw my phone to my side and turned on the light. My room felt different now, smaller, colder. The shadows hung everywhere the light couldn't reach. I double-checked the locks on my apartment door twice, 3 times. Then, when I looked at my phone again, there was another photograph. This was different from the rest. I could see a room, paint clinging for dear life onto the walls. A door with stained wood and rusty hinges, illuminated by a single bulb in the center of the ceiling, casting long, spidery shadows. The kind of place that smelled of mildew and old blood. I didn't know it yet, but this place seemed familiar, like a word on the tip of my tongue. I could hear the faint of the pipes that haven't been maintained for years. Drip, drip, drip. Another message. Come find him. I should have blocked the number, deleted everything, reported it to someone, anyone. What I did do was stand there, staring at that last photo, my mind unraveling at the seams. I knew this was a bad idea, but some hidden thread had already snagged itself in me, pulling me along. I couldn't look away. I have to know, I thought. The next day, the pictures wouldn't leave me alone. I saw them on every shiny surface, my phone, my computer, even the black gleam of my morning coffee. The man's swollen, battered face haunted me. His eyes pleaded with me. For what, I didn't know. The next photo came in, again at 3 a.m. The door to the room was now open. That's it. That's all there was. The door is now open. Yeah, well, interesting. Is it a little spooky? A little spooky. Arguably kind of, little spooky there. It was a lot shorter than I was expecting. We have a third story. We might do a fourth one if this one is also really short. It's only been half an hour. We have a third story, if you will. The Voice and the Static from careless_ticket 9107. I've always been a night owl, the kind of person who thrives when the world goes quiet. My job as an overnight security guard at a crumbling office park suits me fine. Empty buildings, flickering lights, and the hum of old machinery are my kind of company. The pay is decent, the work's easy, and I get to listen to my radio all night. At least I used to love that part. It started about 3 weeks ago. I was on my usual rounds, patrolling the 3rd floor of Building C, a squat concrete relic with peeling paint and windows that haven't been cleaned since the 90s. My portable radio was clipped to my belt, tuned to some late-night talk show, the host's voice droning on about conspiracy theories. I wasn't really listening. It was just background noise to keep the silence from feeling too heavy. Then the static hit, a sharp, crackling burst that made me wince. I stopped mid-step, fiddling with the dial, thinking the station had dropped. But as I twisted it, the static didn't clear. It grew louder, layering with something else. A voice? Low, garbled, like someone muttering underwater. I couldn't make it out. Just this eerie cadence that sent a shiver up my spine. I turned the radio off, chalking it up to interference from the old wiring in the building. That should have been the end of it. The next night it happened again. Same floor, same time, around 2:17 a.m. This time, the static cut through a music station. The voice was clearer. Closer now, it rasped, each syllable stretched and wet. I froze, staring at the radio like it might explain itself. I checked the batteries, the antenna. Everything was fine. I even swapped it out for a spare from the guard shack in the next shift. The voice came back the following night, sharper still. See you soon. I told myself it was a prank. Maybe some asshole with a ham radio was messing with me. I started leaving the radio off during my rounds, relying on the creak of my boots and the distant hum of the HVAC to keep me company. But last Wednesday, I didn't need the radio anymore. I heard it without one. I was in the basement of Building C, checking the utility room. The air down there is thick, damp, and smells like mildew. My flashlight swept over the rusted pipes and tangled wires, and that's when it came. A whisper, right behind me. Found you. I spun around, beams shaking in my hand, but there was nothing. Just shadows, that oppressive stillness. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. I bolted upstairs, locked myself in the guard shack, and didn't move until dawn. Sorry. Felt necessary. I should have quit then, but rent's due, and jobs like this don't grow on trees. So I went back. Last night was the worst. I was on the 3rd floor again, avoiding the basement like it was cursed. The building was dead quiet. No radio, no humming, just my breathing. Then I heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate, echoing down the hall behind me. I turned, flashlight cutting through the dark, and saw nothing. The steps stopped. I called out, "Who's there?" My voice cracked, pathetic. No answer. I started walking faster, heading for the stairs, when the lights overhead flickered and died. That's when the whispering started. Not from one spot, but everywhere. Behind me, above me, in the walls. Here now. Look. It wasn't just one voice anymore. It was a chorus, overlapping, clawing at my ears. I ran, stumbling over chairs, slamming into walls, flashlight beam bouncing wildly. The air felt wrong, cold, heavy, like it was pressing me down. I made it to the stairwell, and as I grabbed the railing, something brushed my neck. Not a hand, not flesh, just this icy, weightless thing that made my skin crawl. I don't remember going outside. Next thing I knew, I was in the parking lot, panting, keys shaking in my hand. I drove home, locked every door, and sat there until sunrise, waiting for something to break the silence. Nothing did. I called in sick tonight. My boss wasn't happy, but I don't care. I can't go back. Not after what I found on my phone this morning. I'd taken a picture last week, some graffiti on the 3rd floor wall I meant to report. I hadn't looked at it closely until today. There, in the corner of the frame, half hidden by shadows, is a figure. Tall, thin, no face, just a smear where one should be. It's standing right where I'd been when I snapped the shot. I didn't see it then. I didn't hear it. But it was there. I keep hearing static now, even without the radio. It's faint, buzzing at the edge of my thoughts. And sometimes when I close my eyes, I swear I hear that voice again. Closer, closer. I don't know what it wants. I don't know how it found me. But I'm posting this because I need someone to know. If I stop replying, if I disappear, it's not an accident. It's coming. And I think it's already here. Sorry, this one felt especially appropriate for the scariest stories. This one felt a little dramatic, shall we say. Pretty immediately. Well, that's three. Oh, sorry. That's three really short stories. Let's see if we can find another one. Maybe one that's a little bit longer. Oh, there was one I found earlier, and I decided to not read it because A, it was a series, and B, it just sounded really coincidental. And I'll explain that in a second here. Let me see if I can find it again. Hold on, hold on, hold on. Not that one. No, I want to find it again. No, 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 no. This week. I want to see if I can find it again. It was so funny when I found it. No, please. Oh, I found it. I found it. So it's a series. It's by the user adorabletapeworm, which I like their profile because it's a worm and they have like a little like coat and glasses. It's quite cute. Um, but the story is called Orion Pest Control, a completely normal rat infestation. And some of you might have known or noticed we have Orion Random in our chat. He is a rat scientist. And I thought it was really fucking funny to have this like coincidence. Yeah. I thought it was so funny. It was there. It was, yeah. Oh, the bongo button. It's so cute. It turned out so nice. And by the sounds of it, I've been spamming it everywhere. Sorry, cats. It's okay. Hold on, hold on, hold on. Yeah, so it's Orion Pest Control. It's a series. I don't know how long it is. I'm kind of curious to see how long it is. Long runners. Okay. So it's definitely like a. Huh? Huh? Okay, we have. This is all from the same user. This is Adorable Tapeworm. Long runners. Orion Pest Control. I think I lost my throne at the quote weird coworker, which apparently is done, is completed. And then short and not so sweet, I sent my brother to hell for his own good. Excuse me? What? You've piqued my interest. Adorable tapeworm. Huh? You're right. Alright. Sometimes you gotta do it to him. Fuck, dude. R/atypical pests. Alright. I sent my brother to hell for his own good. Let's get some music back in here, shall we? Where's my this one? I like the other one, but this one feels more appropriate, I think. The other one I had going felt too like a beat, I think. Alright. Sorry, I have a lingering cough, so if I mute for a minute, it's because I'm coughing. And it's gross. And you guys don't need to hear that. So, apologies. Um we start. For as long as I could remember, I'd always struggled to believe the way I was supposed to. Okay. Back when I was 16, I was hard on my parents, testing my limits to see how far I could push them. I saw them as oppressive, not willing to engage with anything that made them uncomfortable. But now that I'm older, I can appreciate that they were trying their best. They didn't have all the answers, but thought that as parents and good Christians, they should. Fake it till you make it and all that. And in return, I was supposed to accept their word at face value, as was the natural order between parents and their children. You'll do as I say because I said so, and that is that. But then my brother disappeared, and the natural order of everything crumbled. Alright. Brian normally came home from band practice at the same time each day, but on April 12th, 2015, I didn't hear his keys jingle as he unlocked the door. Didn't hear his old beater pulling up into the driveway. Didn't hear any gripes about how the girl on the first chair wouldn't shut up about her new strings. I think about that first evening so often. How I told myself that he was just running a bit late. Normally when that happened, he gave us all a heads up. Since I was grounded again, I had to ask Dad if he'd gotten any texts. Nothing. Not on my phone or his. Brian normally came home at 6 o'clock. The clock chimed 7. Then 8, then 9. While Mom, Dad, and I waited to hear his car, his voice, the phone ring, anything, that was when it began. The quiet. The thing that no one tells you about when someone you love doesn't come home is how the silence that fills the air where their laughter should be is louder than any scream. You should be hearing their footsteps in the hall. You should be arguing over who used up all the hot water in the shower and put Dad in a bad mood. There should be a light on in his room as he listens to his metal music that our parents tolerate because if that's Brian's way of rebelling, I'll take it. The quiet kills you. That first night when Mom called the police, her voice was hushed as if afraid that speaking too loudly would make the nightmare real. As long as we didn't talk about it, it wasn't as bad as we thought. Just a misunderstanding. He was running late. That was that. Hours turned into days. More muted conversations with the police. Both Mom and Dad looking at me to make sure I couldn't hear. However, their faces told me more than words ever could. In just a span of a few days, they looked much older. I aged too. Everyone in town and members of our church banded together to go on searches. He was probably just lost in the woods, probably just at a friend's house. You know how boys are at that age. It didn't matter that Brian wasn't like that. It's just how boys are because it's better than the alternative. Days of oblivion, not knowing if Brian was alive or dead, became weeks. The searches kept going, but less and less people showed up to call his name in the faint hope that something besides the coyotes would answer. He was just lost in the woods. He would turn up eventually. Even though I never saw the appeal of the music that he liked to listen to, I would sneak into his room at night, turn on the CD player. If his music was playing, he wasn't gone. He was just in the room right next to mine. I knew exactly where he was. We knew exactly where he was. One night I caught Dad sneaking in to sit on his bed. The silence was broken as the man that I used to think as an authoritative and unbreakable caved in on himself, trying to muffle his sobs with Brian's pillow. I came in and joined him, hugging him as tightly as I could. Mom followed soon after, embracing us both, her sobs accompanying ours. The pillow still had his scent, like he was right there, trapped within the threads, buried too deep where we couldn't reach him. It was at this point that I had begun to pray. Despite all of my unanswered questions and skepticism, I didn't know what else to do. If Brian couldn't answer us when we called his name, maybe God would. Just this once. 3 months after Brian's disappearance, he was found. I will never forget the way my mother howled his name, over and over, as if in her grief would be enough to call him back to where he belonged. It doesn't matter how long it's been. I can't say what happened to him. I just can't. He wasn't just murdered. Thinking about what was done to him makes me want to dig up the man that took him from us and hammer his bones into powder. Death wasn't enough for him. Nothing was enough for him. Clearly, I wasn't the only one that felt that way. When Brian's abductor was found, he didn't last very long behind bars. Reportedly, before giving him his due, one of the members of his lynch mob told him, "If you ain't a praying man now, you will be by the time we're done with you." That's where the problem came in. He did pray. He pleaded for forgiveness. Not from the mob. Not from my family. Not even from Brian. God's kingdom is open to all, even the depraved, the unkind, the hateful. Even to people like him. All that is required for the gates to open and to feel the warmth of his love is to ask for his forgiveness. And ask he did. But what did that mean for Brian? How could his soul possibly find rest if the one who sent him to heaven before his time was right there with him? This was one of the many questions that haunted me. But back before he was taken away from us, it had just been a thought experiment with no real stakes. What if a hypothetical victim was trapped in what should have been a paradise with their hypothetical killer? Just a word problem, like in a math class. If John had 12 apples and Judy takes 8 and Sarah gives him 4 times the amount of that, does that doom him to spend an eternity with the man that brutalized him? For Brian's sake, I had to know if that was true. But I wouldn't dare ask that question. My parents had been through enough. To this day, and as a parent myself now, I don't know how they did it. How they were able to wake up each morning knowing that one of their babies was going in the ground. So, without voicing that terrible question to a single soul, I prayed for Brian to find peace. Along with that, I prayed for an answer, though I didn't expect one. However, I did receive one, and it wasn't from God. On the day of the funeral, I'm ashamed to admit that I was afraid to go to the casket, even though it was closed. Dad's eyes were empty as he held my mom, who had her face buried in his chest since we arrived. If she didn't look, it wasn't real. Likewise, I stood at the end of the long carpet leading to where the casket sat, overwhelmed by the hushed chatter and the terrible organ music playing through the church's crackling speakers. I tried to tell myself that it wasn't him. It was just a body. No, it wasn't even a body. It was a wax figurine inside, modeled to look like him. A dummy. A fake. Even better, the casket was empty, and this was all just a dream. My cheeks were wet. My eyes burned, the golden lights in the church becoming beams. I couldn't breathe. My feet had spreaded roots that burrowed into the center of the earth. They wouldn't move. If you get to say goodbye, you'll regret it. The same priest I had known since childhood. Despite how tender and gentle his voice was, I didn't want to accept his hand when he offered it. I didn't want to go. Even though he was most likely right, the roots in my legs were stuck firm. I closed my eyes. His hand disappeared into the mist, leaving my palm damp and cold. The quiet weighed on my ears to the point of pain. When my eyes opened, the church was empty. No priest, no mom and dad. The church looked completely different in the dark, larger, or maybe I'd gotten smaller somehow. Either way, I didn't feel welcome. The only thing that remained was the coffin, standing up now, facing me. Izzy. Brian's nickname for me. I used to hate it, but before that moment, I wouldn't have given anything to hear it again. He was whispering from inside, his voice echoing in the hollow, deserted sanctum. His voice sounded strange, raspy, dry. My hand shook. I couldn't move. "It's not right," he continued, his voice cracking in a way that made me want to shatter like it's glass. It's not like they said. I opened my mouth, but I wasn't sure if I was going to do. Scream? Speak? Neither happened. The roots had grown upward to take over my vocal cords as well. That was when the air changed in the room, like the electric tension in the atmosphere before the storm arrives. My hair stood on end. Automatically, I knew where the lightning had struck, turning my head to see not a bolt of electricity, but a girl. The girl was the same age as me, maybe a bit older. She was slouched, staring at a glittering blue rosary tangled around her fingers as if it was a puzzle she was trying to solve. Brian's murmurs continued as I fought to get my body to do something, anything, but just stand there. We don't have much time, Isabel, the girl said plainly, her head slowly turning to meet my gaze. They'll come looking for him soon. As if she'd broken a spell, my legs finally moved. On their own accord, they guided me to sit next to her. She didn't blink or move as I approached her. Once I'd slid into the pew, I spoke for the first time that day, the words scratchy, as if being played from a broken radio. Is this real? Letting the rosary drop, swinging in her long fingers, the girl gingerly reached forward to use her thumb to wipe my tears away. Her hands felt clammy on my flushed cheeks, face hot from how much I'd been crying. It certainly felt real. Izzy. Brian's sobs were constant. Her eyes. The girl's eyes were strange. They gazed through me, into me, stripping away skin, muscle, bone. Who are you? I asked. She didn't blink. Those peculiar eyes continued to dig into each and every atom of my being as she said softly, when you were a little girl, you used to beg your mom to keep the hall light on. You get a running start and jump into your bed, thinking I was hiding underneath, waiting to grab you. Heart pounding, I started to pull away from her, knowing now who I was speaking to. The girl's voice came out as a whisper. And you were right. Run. I had to run. She stayed seated, observing me as I raced for where the exit should have been. Brick. The door was gone. Brian was crying quietly from his coffin. Even though I grew up going to church, it had changed, becoming a brick cage. No doors. The windows were dark, as if the world outside had vanished, leaving only the sanctum. The girl waited patiently as I searched for some way out. Any way out. She had gone back to examining her rosary, completely apathetic. In the meantime, Brian had begun to plead with me again. He's with me. It happens over and over again. I can't get away, please. Does that answer your question? The girl's voice floated over his agonized whispers as she continued to toy with the cross. About what the kingdom is like. The words came out of my mouth without a thought. Oh my god. He loves you, the girl muttered distantly as she rose from the pew. He loves everyone. Every saint. Every sinner. Even the ones he sends to me. You're all equal in his eyes, even when you aren't. The hammer is the nail, and as long as they love him back and plead his forgiveness, they will stay together. My voice came back, angry and bereaved as she spoke each word with the cold detachment of stating a simple fact. What do you want? Why are you doing this? You wanted an answer, she replied as she came to stand in front of me. She was much taller, though her overwhelming presence made her seem even larger. And I want souls. Your brother isn't in a position to offer his anymore. Only the living have that luxury. You'll have to do it for him. My heart beat even faster, my breath coming quicker as the weight of her words finally clicked within my frantic brain. You can't be serious. Her face betrayed no emotion. Shall I let the angels take him back? At that, Brian's pleading became more urgent, begging her and I to not let him go back to heaven. where he was. I couldn't bear it. My hands covered my eyes, as if by hiding I could make the last 3 months all go away. As Brian began to beat on the lid of his coffin, the girl spoke over him, sounding almost wistful. "He won't find paradise or rest in hell. Neither of you will. But there is a sort of freedom there. Ones that Brian has no access to without your help." Even now, all these years later, I still can't understand why any of this had to happen. Not just to us, but to anyone. When I responded, my voice sounded like someone else's, coming out haggard as it became harder and harder to breathe. "How do I know this isn't a trick? How do I know that... The girl simply said, "Open the coffin." "No!" Brian screamed from within the wood. "I don't want you to see me like this." The girl still had not blinked, nor had her eyes flickered from my face. "You know that I'm telling you the truth, Isabel. For you, damnation is your only salvation. His salvation. This entire time he has suffered. He will suffer less with me." "What do you get out of this?" I choked out. "What could our souls possibly mean to you?" "Not much. Not much at all." That cold hand brushed a lock of hair behind my ear. She remained impassive as I recoiled from her touch. She continued, "You'll be the mere droplets in the ocean, absolutely indiscernible from the rest. Where you end and they begin, I won't recall. But you're still droplets that he doesn't get, two baptized souls that I've stolen away from my father." She stopped to kneel in front of me, reaching to cup my chin. This time, I didn't retreat. The girl, the devil, sounded earnest as she uttered, "I will never love you. Not like how he does. But his love hurts you. It hurts all of you. Knowing what you know now, can you honestly say that his love is preferable to my neglect?" For the first time, I found some courage as I accepted the devil's help as she wrapped a hand around my forearm, aiding me in standing up. Once upright, I allowed her to lead me towards the coffin. In the meantime, Brian kept pounding at it. It loomed over me, more like a doorway than a casket. A door I was terrified to open. The devil then mirrored the same sentiment that the priest had before she brought me here. "If you forget to say goodbye, you'll regret it." From the other side of the wood, Brian begged me not to. Hesitantly, I let my shaking fingertips against the lid. Abruptly, the beating stopped. From the other side, I felt a soft thud against my palm. In my mind's eye, I saw Brian putting his own hand against mine, separated only by wood. "Don't open it. Please," he whispered, sounding as if something had broken within him. My whole life, it had been said that the devil is the deceiver, seeking to tempt and torment mankind with sin. It occurred to me that this whole thing could be a trick. A demon posing as my brother could be within that coffin instead of him. However, I also had been told that the devil would be a man and that heaven was a paradise. "I need to see you," I rasped, my voice coming out like it belonged to someone else. "I need to know for sure." Quietly, enough to make my vision blur as it became overrun with more tears, Brian muttered, "It hurts." After a swallow and a shudder, I reached for the coffin's lid. I wish it all had been an elaborate trick after all. The mortician tried. They used stitches to bring what was left of Brian's cheeks together, shutting his eyes, closing the hole in his forehead where flies had already begun to nest. As if the more thread they used, the more they could erase the atrocity that had happened to him. How his body had sat by the side of an abandoned lot for weeks, unclothed and unnoticed until some kids had stumbled across it looking for a smoke spot. His skin moved with all the organisms that now lived inside him, taking life from his dead flesh. As he silently reached forward to pull the coffin lid back over himself, I doubled over the nearest pew as the few bites of breakfast I had been able to stomach that morning violently fought its way out of my mouth. The devil simply observed, the rosary swinging from her hand like a pendulum. That's why I didn't want you to see. Brian sounded remorseful. The devil finally spoke again. I regret to inform you that you're running out of time. You need to make a decision quickly. Staggering as my whole body shook from the memory of things squirming beneath Brian's bloated, splotchy cheeks, I approached the casket once again. This affected him the most. Heaven couldn't be heaven while he was trapped like this. What do you want, Brian? Please, don't make me go back. I pressed my forehead against the wood, wondering how the hell I was supposed to do this. If it's any consolation, once you join him, he won't be alone anymore. I believe this was the devil's attempt at providing some semblance of comfort. It was delivered in a deadpan tone with no trace of warmth on her face. There were so many other things plaguing my mind, an eternity of torment for both of us. And our parents, what about them? We'd never see them again. They'd be stuck in God's kingdom with Brian's killer. Bang! I jumped, whirling around. The church shook. Dust rained from the bricks as whatever was out there pounded on the wall. What followed was an outraged roar like metal gears grinding against each other, so high in pitch that I had to cover my ears. Once the roar finally subsided, the devil informed me. The angels are coming. That's an angel? Brian called through the casket. Isabel. I'm alright, I assured him, but my frantic shout probably wasn't convincing. The devil was beginning to lose her patience as she told me once again, you need to make a decision, now, or they'll take him back. The thing outside released another deafening cry. Stark white light began to flow through the windows. The grinding sound bounced a bit. A laugh. Isabel. The devil said my name so firmly, with more power behind it than I have ever heard in my life, that I had no choice but to focus on her. All went quiet. Brian's shouts, the angels' attempts to batter down the church walls. It was just her and I. Do it. Take him. And tell him I love him. To this day, I don't know if the choice I made was the right one. But for the first time, the devil smiled. Then the wall broke, flooding the church in blinding light as the grinding made me want to crawl out of my skin. A hand seized mine. With a cry, I rushed it away and stumbled back, unable to keep my legs below me as I scrambled away. Isabel? The voice was familiar. Not the devil, not Brian. The lights were back on. The priest who'd offered to walk with me was looking down at me with a mixture of concern and pity. At some point, I'd ended up on the floor. Mom had reemerged from the protective cocoon of Dad's embrace as they both rushed towards me in alarm. The church had gone silent as all who'd come to pay their respects watched in stunned sympathy. Only the somber organ music playing over the speakers remained. For years, I never told anyone about what happened for obvious reasons. It sounds like a grief-induced psychological episode, and for a while that's what I told myself it was. But I remember every word from that visit from the devil. I remember exactly how it felt in her dark, imprisoning vision of our family church. I recalled that moment more profoundly than my wedding day, or when I held either of my newborn sons in my arms. Eventually, there came a time that I couldn't deny it to myself anymore, and I'd become morbidly curious about the many others that were offered this deal. I began to reach out to other families who had gone through similar losses to mine had. It turns out that the answer to that question is too many. This may sound silly, but those of us who've accepted the devil's offer have formed a little support group. We meet once a month. All of us know that there is nothing that can be done. It's just nice to be around others who get it. others who willingly damn themselves and their loved ones. If anyone reading this has ended up in a similar situation, I encourage you to DM me. I'll give you the details. You'll be amazed at how much it helps to be in a room of people that understand the terrible choice you had to make. While I can acknowledge now that this was a spectacular burden to place on the teenage girl, I am glad that I was approached rather than one of my parents. It took years for Mom to smile again, and the stress of everything nearly sent my father to an early grave. As terrible as it sounds, I can't summon the courage to tell either of them about the deal. I know that it's wrong to keep something like this from them, but they comfort themselves with the idea of reuniting in heaven with Brian someday. How do you look at your parents in the eye and tell them that you took their son away from them again? The guilt is the hardest thing to live with. Even though I know it was better than sending Brian back to where his tormentor was for all of eternity, I still question myself. Everyone in our group does. So I'll say it again. If anyone else has been approached by the devil, please reach out. You're not crazy. You didn't imagine it, and you don't have to deal with this alone. That was quite depressing. Apparently, I'm going through the comments right now. Apparently, this was at one point on NoSleep, which makes sense. However, it got taken down due to, quote, unacceptable subject matter. Maybe it's a little bit too religious for the likings. Which is interesting because I do remember that we read another one that technically the main character interacted with the devil, and it was another woman, but it was more, how do I, it was more questioning like reality than like actual religion, if that makes sense. So I guess it was okay, but then this one got taken down, so it got put onto Atypical Pests instead. I forgot to put, yeah, Atypical Pests. I'm not sure what that is. It might be like another subreddit of spooky, scary stories. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure, but that's where I went. Oh no. Hmm. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure, but I'm debating if I want to start the Orion Pest Control Index, because there are 26 chapters, 36 chapters, and then like a couple side stories. At least currently. It seems to be still ongoing, so that's interesting. It is quite a lot. However, we did read a longer one, and it was the Like, it was like the last owner of my apartment left me a survival guide. That one ended up being like 20 chapters, so that wasn't like horrible. It was quite long, but I personally really enjoyed it. So I wouldn't mind, maybe not today, but the next time I do ASMR story reading, then we can start that. Yeah. I'm still a smidge under the weather. I can hear my voice getting caught from trying not to cough. So I apologize. Actually, one second. Sorry, need to blow my nose. Yeah, I'm sorry. I could feel my voice getting caught here and there from trying to not cough. So, just a light stream today, just a little more than an hour. Yes, thank you, thank you. Yes, I am taking care of myself. Don't worry, I'm on my last little bit of meds that I'm supposed to be taking. I'm supposed to take them for 10 days. It's been... 10 days would be tomorrow. So I am fine. Technically, I could stop taking them today, but just to be, be on the caution side, might as well take all of them. I'm still... Yeah, no more sick. No more sick. No, no, no. I will always be sick. It will always have a risk. However, it's easily mitigated if I just take care of myself. But sometimes it'll just come back. I don't really mind sharing this. But for anyone that is curious, it is a smidgen gross, so I apologize. However, I have what I like to call chronic kidney condition, or chronic kidney infections. I've had them since I was a child. Yeah, they suck. They used to start off as just UTIs or urinary tract infections, and I'd have them quite frequently. As I've gotten older, I have them less frequently. They usually have now spanned out over getting one every couple years, give or take like a year and a half, 2 years between getting them, because I do take care of myself. I drink lots of water. I try to avoid excess sugar. Just generally being hygienic. Um, and also just me like growing up as becoming an adult. The doctor had told me for verbatim, and I remember this very clearly, that they called it a flap. I'm not sure why, but the flap that is in your bladder, for me, and I'm sorry that this is gross, it doesn't close all the way. So unfortunately, when I go to urinate, it does not fully flush out, which can cause bacterial infections. So that is the thing. As I've gotten older, it has gotten less frequent, and it does close better, but it does still happen. It is awful. It for anyone that's had a UTI, it sucks. Yeah, thank you. It's very manageable. Just generally keep being hygienic, drinking a lot of water, etc., etc. Don't drink cranberry juice. It's a fucking scam. It's not worth shit. It tastes disgusting. Sorry, childhood trauma. Sorry I gotta deal with that. It's okay. Thank you. Unfortunately, and you can take this how you will, on Valentine's Day, I got hit with another UTI. Snack was kind enough to take me to the ER, where I was in there for 3 hours. Most of it was just kind of sitting and waiting, as you do in a typical American hospital, just for the doctor to tell me, yeah, you have a UTI, here's some meds, good luck. Which is all I really needed, just I was hoping it wouldn't take 3 hours. So I came in, A, knowing what I had, B, having all the symptoms for it, C, knowing exactly what I needed and just needing the doctor to tell me, yep, here you go. Yeah, so I spent a good chunk of Valentine's Day. Along with, it was such a fucked up day in general. We had learned that morning that my town and a neighboring town main water line had burst. So we had no water. The water was shut off. So we had to go and get water from somewhere. We got like a gallon of water and like one of those like big water packs of like water bottles. So we had to do that. All the neighboring nearby hospitals, because like there's one like 5 minutes down the street from us that was closed because they had no water and they had to send off their patients to different hospitals. The next closest hospital, or I should say next closest 3 other hospitals, all closed because of the main water break. I had to go to a different town entirely, like a 15-20 minute drive because of traffic, to go to a hospital. In the hospital for 3 hours, right? That was agony. That was sucked. As we were leaving the hospital, it started to snow so heavily. Like, we got in there was no snow on the ground. It was maybe some melted residual. We left, there was already like 3 inches of snow on the ground. Hi, Cup and Cat. So, Snack was driving extra careful because there's fresh snow. We couldn't see the roads very well because they weren't plowed yet because it just started snowing. So it took us like almost 40 minutes to get home because he was just trying to be really careful, really safe. Because of that, because the doctors weren't like negligent, but like they kind of left me on the back burner, so we left later than I would have liked. And because of the snow, I couldn't get my meds that night from the drugstore that's across the street from us because the pharmacy closed at 8. So I had to go the next day to go pick up the meds. Thankfully, I had the same prescription from a couple years ago, so I had those as a backup until I could get them. And then it's just like agony for like 3 days, and I was just in bed in pain, fever, sweating, cold, etc., etc. It sucked. Kept sleeping for like 3 days because it's so much energy to deal with chronic illness. But now we're here. Now I'm fine. I'm like 90% better. This is like a first time this happened too. I developed a cough while having it. So I think I probably like caught a cold and had a UTI, which is such a fucking wombo combo, let me tell you. It sucked. So I'm still dealing with the cold aspect, I guess. So I've been coughing, and they're just like gross coughs, blowing my nose. Yeah, it's pretty fucking bad. But I'm alive. We're doing a lot better. I've been taking my meds as needed. I've been taking Tylenol and ibuprofen as needed. My past week has been agonizing. The good thing was, good news, was yesterday was Miu's birthday, and we went and celebrated at an Outback Steakhouse because that's what she wanted for dinner, and it was quite lovely. It was quite nice. So that's been the highlight of my sick adventure. And sorry to worry any of you. Sorry to not have streamed for the past week. That's where I've been. Half of it was spent in bed. Did you get a nice blooming onion? No, because none of us like it. We did, however, get other appetizers, and we got very delicious, yummy steak. Yeah. We wanted to go to Texas Roadhouse, but the one that we went to had just recently opened up, and they had a 2.5 hour wait, and we said, fuck that. Went over to Outback Steakhouse, which was like down the block. Went in, oh yeah, there's an hour wait. We waited for 10 minutes and we were seated. So it worked out. Anyway, that's where I've been for the past week. But we will continue with our regularly scheduled programs of Ori and the Will of Wisps tomorrow. So we're going to continue that. We're going to go back to Nonary Games 999 on Wednesday, and then more Omori on Sunday next week. So, glad to be back. Glad to say hi to everyone. Hope you guys didn't miss me too much. And we'll call it here. I'm sorry it's a short stream. My voice doesn't feel quite up to par to reading a whole bunch, even though I read 4 different stories, but a lot of them were just really, really short. So, sorry to cut it short, but I'll be back tomorrow. Does anyone have anyone to raid? Oh? You got one? Okay. What we got? Can we raid in? Natalia Cat. Alright. Oops. She is a sweetie. Aww. Okay. Go ahead and copy one of those. First one's for subscribers, second one's for followers. Thanks for hanging out with me tonight. We'll go back to our regularly scheduled program starting tomorrow. So, hope you all have a lovely rest of your day. Stay safe. Stay hydrated. Don't get a UTI, they fucking suck. Make sure you take care of yourselves. And I'll see you tomorrow for more Ori and the Will-O-Wisps. Bye-bye!